We're now learning that Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico has announced that his government is considering to sue the European Union over its plans to halt Slovakia's Russian gas supplies from 2028. The move comes as Slovakia and Hungary remain highly dependent on Moscow's energy and worry about the costs of alternatives. The Slovak PM has also tasked his economy, foreign and justice ministers to analyze options for legal actions against the EU. Listen in to what he further said on the matter.
Bude dokument na rokovaní vlády budúci týždeň, kde zvážime možnosti podania žaloby. Bude veľmi záležať všetko od toho, ako si plní Európska komisia záväzky voči Slovensku, ktoré boli dané a podpísané priamo predsedníčkou Európskej komisie. Rovnako chcem zopakovať, že Slovenská republika hlasovala proti tomuto rozhodnutiu, pokiaľ ide o REPowerEU, zastavenie toku plynu, a myslíme si, že týmto rozhodnutím, kde sa inak mala vyžadovať jednomyseľnosť a ktoré bolo prijaté len väčšinou členských štátov Európskej únie, boli porušené viaceré základné predpisy Európskej únie ako tak.
Now, the Slovak Prime Minister has not specified how much it can claim while suing the EU or what legal basis it can use in the process. Additionally, Fico has also commented on EU's proposals to use frozen Russian assets for Ukraine, which is estimated at about 140 billion euros. He stressed that these plans raise legal questions and uncertainties, and he does not support any mechanisms that would lead to confiscation of Russian funds. Slovakia has earlier also opposed the European Union's policy towards helping Ukraine's defense. In fact, recently, Fico, while meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, had emphasized that the Slovakian government would not directly supply lethal weapons to Kiev, with the exemption of simply allowing commercial contracts. Joining us on the broadcast is Mr. David K. Johnson. Interesting developments as far as Slovakia is concerned, because we have seen that they are trying to bolster their own air defense capabilities along the Eastern Front. They've acquired systems from Israel. They've bought F-16 fighter jets from the Americans. They've also, in fact, agreed on the need for a drone wall back in September. So on one hand, they are in agreement with the larger security apparatus, but on the other, as far as their energy needs are concerned, they have drawn the red line. If Slovakia is considering suing the EU over the latter's plans to halt Russian gas supplies from 2028, what sort of mechanism do you think is available for them to do so, and how could they go about doing that?
Well, how they would pursue this legally is a question I can't answer for you, and I don't think that the government can either. But it's important to note that before the Russian invasions, Prime Minister Robert Fico's country was counting on the Russians for 85% of their natural gas. They're now down to only about a third of their natural gas. So by 2028, they should be able to pivot away from the natural gas coming through what's called the Turk Stream pipeline from Russia. And it's important to note that Fico has made himself into an asset of the Kremlin. He went to their 80th victory celebration of the defeat of the Nazis. He has spoken favorably again and again about Vladimir Putin. So I suspect this is more an effort to probe whether there are wedges that can be driven among EU nations and Western European nations to help the Kremlin advance its fundamental goal of expanding its control of Eastern Europe.
Indeed, sir. On that note, I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking further updates. Now, the European Commission has announced plans to reduce the number of cookie consent banners shown to users while maintaining data privacy. Under the proposed changes, users would be able to indicate consent with a single click and save preferences through browser or operating system settings, streamlining the current process. Now, in a separate measure, the EU has also proposed giving companies more time to comply with rules on high-risk artificial intelligence. Now, originally set to take effect in August 2026, the deadline for compliance with EU's AI regulations, which entered into force last year, would now be extended to December 2027. This is the latest coming in on the tech front. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. David K. Johnson. Interesting development as far as reducing cookie consent banners through browser-level preferences are concerned. There's, of course, we've seen a tussle between the EU and the big tech as of late over the last couple of years. What sort of message is the EU trying to send by laying down these guidelines, and as far as its stringent data protection standards are concerned?
Well, this goes to one of the important things I teach my students at Rochester Institute of Technology, my law students. In Europe, human rights, and that includes consumer rights, grow out of the concept of human dignity. In America, they grow out of property rights. So you get very different rules. And the Europeans have been much better than the Americans about big tech, on gathering information, on turning the customer into the source of information they resell. In America, this problem of pop-up banners is completely out of control. A number of websites are virtually unreadable, and some publishers are beginning to recognize that if people can't read their content, then the ads are of no use whatsoever. So what they're trying to do here in the EU is take a situation that's not as bad as in America, but it's pretty bad from my last visit to Europe, and reduce the amount of just things flowing up on your screen and saying, look at this, buy this product. And one click is probably the simplest, best answer. It was the EU, after all, that led the charge on saying we're going to use one uniform set of plugs instead of every new device having its own separate plug, which is incredibly wasteful to the environment and incredibly expensive to consumers. And hopefully the EU will adopt rules that are more friendly to consumers. And big tech, of course, counts on all of these automated banners where there's no workers involved to earn the kind of outsized profits, supranormal profits, as economists say, that they have come to expect and regard as a right.
Indeed, as you've mentioned, this stems out of human dignity. It's likely to, in fact, reduce user fatigue because while browsing through different sites, one often gets tired just seeing these cookie banners pop up repeatedly. But as far as streamlining cookie consent is and its impact on business models is concerned, how can then we see the advertisers sort of respond to this?
Well, advertisers, I think, should be right now taking a hard look at, are you in fact acquiring customers and bringing in revenue? Or are you annoying people and driving them away? And targeting has always been a problem. Most people don't see your ad. In the pre-internet era, however, where you had fewer outlets, fewer publications or broadcast stations, you threw something out there and then you tested the responses that you got. A lot of what you're seeing now seems very scattergun approach, not at all focused, highly inefficient. And why? Well, because the rates being paid to throw these annoying cookie banners out there that explode on your screen is incredibly low. So some adjustment to make price be an information point would be a big benefit to consumers. And it could be a benefit to the companies if it reduces annoyance. And I know there are a couple of companies I don't want to hear about them anymore because they keep, in my view, invading my experience on the internet.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for sharing your perspective on this interesting development. On that note, viewers, we're shifting focus to what's taking place in Turkey. We're now learning that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is meeting with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara, where the two leaders will discuss strategies for securing a just peace in the ongoing conflict. During the meeting, Zelensky has stated that Ukraine hopes to revive the prisoner of war exchanges with Russia by the year end. During the trip, the Ukrainian leader also paid tribute to Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, Turkey's first president, at the Anıtkabir Mausoleum. One of the key aspects of his visit is to seek Turkey's support in reviving the involvement of the United States in efforts to end the ongoing war. Meanwhile, talks are being closely followed. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will not be attending the meeting, as confirmed by a senior U.S. State Department official. The official denied reports suggesting Witkoff's participation in the discussions, emphasizing that the envoy's absence from these talks is accurate. Meanwhile, the president of the Louvre Museum, Laurence Decars, has testified before France's National Assembly in a session focused on cultural governance, transparency and the preservation of natural heritage. During the hearing, the museum chief addressed questions related to funding, security measures and the management of one of the world's most visited cultural institutions. Lawmakers have pressed for clarity on the ongoing restoration projects, the protection of artworks amid rising global scrutiny, concerns as well as the museum's role in promoting access to art for the general public. The testimony has also touched on broader issues affecting French museums, including digitization efforts, international loans of artworks and strategies to maintain attendance following post-pandemic fluctuations. We do know that the Louvre had made headlines after a robbery was reported where the French crown jewels were stolen. Well, viewers, due to